Hi, everybody. Welcome into this week's edition of Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping show. My name is Matt Bernier. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's on deck for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Mike Beer and I will show you some horses that you may want to consider throwing in your DRF horse watch. We'll also go over the Raven Run Stakes, which happens to be the DRF Bets race of the day for Saturday. You can find free formulator past performances over on the race of the day page. Timeform US Pace Projector from Craig Milkowski. He'll be taking a look at the Hudson handicap from Belmont Park Saturday. Nicole Russo's Pedigree pick. She'll be diving into the Raven Run. We'll also go over the Empire Classic, the Mohawk Stakes. We'll have Jonathan Kinchin with JK's Play of the Day. He's looking at a double from Keeneland Racecourse. And David Aragona with the Timeform US Spotlight. He'll be taking a look at the Maid of the Mist from Belmont Park. We'll be wrapping things up with some best bets from myself and Mike Beer. Hopefully get you some winners for this upcoming weekend. Without further ado, let's throw it into the opening segment of this week's edition. Here is the Horse Watch. Time for the Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, you've got an interesting horse for Todd Pletcher that was very impressive coming off of a long layoff.
Yeah, Coppertown was a 3-year-old for Pletcher last year who made a couple of starts sort of late in the season, broke his maiden with a 98 buyer, came back and defeated Allowance Horse with a 106 buyer. Looked like this horse had a really big future. Went away for a full year. This is his first start back down at Keeneland. They come back sprinting him. He got bumped at the start. He was off last. He moved up 4 wide to get up to the leaders. And I don't know, Matt, this is his first start back. I like the way that he finishes his race off. You can see him there as he takes over the lead. He looked like a little bit goofy there taking over, but once he levels off the last 1/8 of a mile here, I like the way he finishes this race. This is a horse who has a very big future, I think, for Pletcher. We'll see where he goes. We'll see if he can stay on the track this year or next year and see what he can do. But as a 4-year-old with only 4 starts, he's got a lot of potential, this horse.
Yeah, visually very impressive. And like you say, coming off of a long layoff, that's a promising start. Hopefully he can stay together for Pletcher and company. I've got a 2-year-old that I thought was quite impressive. And although she didn't get the job done in the Antioch most recently, this was over the weekend. We're going to take a look at a filly called It's an Illusion. She goes out for Jerry Hollendorfer. And you see, she was the one down on the inside cutting out the fractions. Mike Smith was aboard. And she's going to get run down by a horse that we are already familiar with, and she's only started a handful of times. That's chasing yesterday on the outside, American Pharoah's little sister. But considering the fractions that It's Just an Illusion was setting, and considering this was really just her second lifetime start, I thought this was a promising enough effort, and I think she can take a step forward. It's worth noting both of these girls, they galloped out very, very well past the wire. 88 buyer speed figure for It's Just an Illusion, and I do think that this could be the beginning of something better on down the road. I think additional distance won't be a problem. And again, who knows? Chasing yesterday could be anything. But I think It's Just an Illusion is an interesting one to keep an eye on going forward for Hollendorfer and company. Throw those in your horse watch on DRF.com. In the meantime, let's go over some handicapping and kick things off with the Raven Run from Keeneland. Let's take a look at the field for the DRF Bets race of the day for Saturday down at Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, Kentucky. The Grade 2 Raven Run, 3-year-old fillies, 7/8 of a mile on the main track. You can head on over to video.drf.com for the expanded stakes preview, as well as free formulator past performances on the race of the day page on drf.com. Mike, we haven't thrown it up here, but you can see it over in the full stakes preview for the race of the day. The Timeform US Pace Projector suggesting that there's going to be a pretty swift pace signed on early, and especially with the number 1 Amy's Challenge. They only have one way to go. I think it's one of those things from a handicapping standpoint. If you like a horse that's forwardly placed, perhaps they'll be a little bit compromised, but I think for the most part, anyone in this race, you should have a pretty fair shake if you're good enough.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, it's a big field, and it's kind of a wide open kind of field, too. I think a lot of different horses could win, but you're right. The pace, I mean, it projects to be pretty fast in here. Amy's Challenge has one way to go from the rail. There's a speed and blamed off a layoff right to her outside. That horse figures to be going right from the start as well. I think that those two horses have a chance to hook up and maybe to set the race up for somebody else in the race. It is worth noting that the 3 morning line favorites, the 3 shortest prices, they really shouldn't be compromised by the pace.
And you're interested in a horse that in her most recent startup at Saratoga, and I don't think that's indicative of her true running style. We're talking about Moonshine Memories.
Yeah, Moonshine Memories, I don't think you want to classify her as a closer, even though in her most recent start they shipped her to Saratoga for the Prioress, and she was closing. We'll put up the replay and show some of the stretch run for Moonshine Memories here. Now, this is all predicated by the fact that she got off to a terrible start in this race, didn't break sharp in her own right, got bumped between horses, just wound up way back in the field. She actually makes a decent run in this race. There was no way she was going to catch the winner, Dream Tree, who was really impressive. I thought she did really well just to be second in here, Matt, or not to just miss second in here. She probably ran the second best race for sure, though. she's a really talented filly there. I mean, her merits are obvious on paper. I can't say that I'm a huge fan of hers. I just felt like she fit this race really well. I think she did run well in her most recent start, and I just really didn't like anybody else. I'm going to take Moonshine Memories in here.
I think the good thing about a horse like Moonshine Memories in a race like this, it's so wide open. Even as the favorite, you might be looking at 3.5 to 1. You're not looking at any sort of terribly short price, and she makes all the sense in the world coming in for Simon Callahan. I'm going to go a little bit outside of the box, I think, with a first time going out for a private purchase for Phoenix Thoroughbreds. That's a filly called Chauncey, breaking from post position number 8. Chauncey most recently ran in the Charlestown Oaks. We're going to take a look at that stretch run right now. Keep in mind, the Charlestown Oaks is a 2-turn, 7-furlong race. She's making the front right now, and unfortunately for her, she's going to get run down by one of the local hopes in here, a horse that's returned to win next out with an 87 buyer. Chauncey's a little bit of an interesting horse to dissect because I think she's really been doing some things that she hasn't necessarily wanted to do all along, but her two most recent 7/8 of a mile races, this race that you just took a look at there, as well as a race from Laurel Park 3 starts back, I think both of those make her at least intriguing in here. She's 15 to 1 on the morning line. Don't know that you get 15, but perhaps you get something closer to that 10 to 1 range, and she'll be coming from a little bit off the pace. I'll give Chauncey a little bit of a look in here, but I agree with Mike. Feels like Moonshine Memories. Feels like this race sets up quite well for her, and she should be viewed as the horse to beat. Timeform US is Craig Milkowski. He's going to take a look at the Timeform US pace projector and dive into the Hudson handicap from Belmont Park on Saturday afternoon. And Nicole Russo with the pedigree pick for this week. She will also be taking a look at the Raven Run from Keeneland. Let's throw it to those segments.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski of Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Today I'm going to take a look at the pace projector for the Hudson handicap being run as the 4th race on Saturday at Belmont Park. It's a 6-furlong race on dirt for stakes race for New York breds. It's their New York bred showcase day, and I think the whole card or nearly all of the card is New York bred stakes races. What stuck out on this one is there's not a whole lot of pace in here, and that's what I'm going to start with first is show the Timeform US pace projector. And the first thing you'll notice that it says the race favors horses on or near the early lead. And it might be a little confusing if you're not familiar with our product because you'll see there's a couple horses shown right on the front, bunched up, a couple more right behind, and it makes it look like a contentious pace. But we're going to look at the next page, which is the preview page for the race and our product, and see why the Timeform US pace projector is saying this. If you look at our running styles that we show, there's only 2 horses in the whole field listed as trackers. We don't have any leader, which is usually what we show for horses who are absolute need the leads, or speed horses, horses who are always right there on the lead or just off the lead. So according to us, there's not a whole lot of speed in here. The distance is only, I said 6 furlongs earlier, it's actually 6.5. But there's still just not a lot of speed, so that's where that label comes from. Now I want to look at a few of the horses in here and see how we think the pace projector and the projected pace could affect them. The first one is I Love Lulu, who is shown as the 4 horse in the pace projector. He is shown as a horse who is likely to lead, closely flanked by the 5, who we'll look at in just a second. And if you look at his PPs, he has shown that he often does like to be up front. He's a really consistent horse. All his speed figures in the last 6 range between 114 and 123. He's led in 4 of those 6 races, so it won't be any surprise to see him grab the front, especially in a race with little other speed than the 5. I do have a few concerns with him. He does tend to back up late. If you look at his finish compared to his pace call, the 4 furlong point, in most of those races, he has dropped some ground late in the race. The horse I'm most interested in here is number 5, My Boy Tate. And for a few reasons. I don't have morning line yet on him, but I suspect he's going to be a little better priced than some others in here. And My Boy Tate has some things I really like going for him. First off, he's coming off it's his 3rd race off a layoff, which is one of my favorite angles. I generally look for horses who are improving. His layoff was almost 6 months. It was 170 some odd days. And what you see is he has run in the 120s before. He came back from the layoff, ran a 119 and a good solid effort. And then it looks like he regressed a little last time, but I definitely think he had some excuses in that race. He was bumped at the start. He was kind of wide. The pace was a little bit slow, and then the race finished fast. So he was trying to make up ground just as the race was speeding up. I think in this spot, just as the pace projector shows, he's going to be able to lay just off the 4 horse, and I think he's got a little better finishing kick than him. So my boy Tate is going to be my play in here. One other horse I want to look at is Celtic Chaos. He's a horse that I think is going to take some money, but I think he's a horse that's going to be adversely affected by the pace of the race. If you look at where he is at the first and especially the second calls, he's still usually lagging way behind at that point. He usually makes a good rally. He's clearly improved. He's in lifetime best form since moving to the barn of Brian Cox, running 3 consecutive 120s, which are about as good as he's done, scrolling through his lifetime past performances. And in any other situation, I think he'd be a strong contender. But given the lack of pace in here, I just think there's going to be too much to do. So once again, my pick for this week is going to be my boy Tate, the 5. I think he's got a little bit of a pace edge. He's going to sit outside the speed, and I think he's going to offer a decent price. That's it for this week for Timeform US. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington for Out of the Gate, looking at a solid field set for the Grade 2 Raven Run Stakes at Keeneland on Saturday. Taking a look, you'll see 2 fillies down toward the inside there who you'll recognize from the run-up to the Kentucky Oaks, Amy's Challenge and Blamed. Neither ultimately ran in that race, both coming off some freshening. Both have run well at both short and middle distances, and I think this sort of elongated sprint of 7 furlongs could suit them just right. Amy's Challenge was a quick stakes winner sprinting as a juvenile, came back with this game and good win over Mia Mischief in the Dixie Belle at Oaklawn. Mia Mischief bound for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Amy's Challenge then stretched out for a pair of graded placings at 1 mile and a 16th. I think she was just a little burned out when she finished 7th in the 8 bells at her only try at the 7 furlong distance in May. She took a break, came back for a sharp allowance optional win at her Canterbury base going 5 furlongs August 8th. She's coming in pretty fresh again, and considering her performances going a bit longer, she should stretch out from the 5 to the 7 well. Her sire, Artie Schiller, can get you a quick horse. He's the sire of Australian champion Flying Artie, a Group 1 winner sprinting 6 furlongs, as well as a Grade 1 winner at 1 mile in Kilroe Mile winner Bowie's Hero. Damn Jump Up was also pretty versatile, won all 3 of her starts from 6 furlongs to 1 mile and a 16th. Now, Blamed has won 5 straight races up to the 1 mile and a 16th of the Sunland Park Oaks in March before being declared from the Kentucky Oaks with an injury. She's since been transferred to trainer Bill Knott, for whom she makes her first start Saturday. You'd expect runners by Breeders' Cup Classic winner Blame to be at their best routing, but Blame is the sire of Marley's Freedom, a Grade 1 winner over 7 furlongs who's headed to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Blamed also out of Salsa Star, who gives her some speed, with stakes placed at 5 furlongs in England, and Salsa Star, a half-sister to Grade 3 winning sprinter Pacific Ocean. I think a wide-open edition of this race on Saturday. Of course, the very quick, multiple Grade 1 winner Moonshine Memories also in there. A really deep field. Really watch the board, look for some value here. We'll be back to take you through more of this weekend's stakes action in a minute on Out of the Gate.
DRF Sports Forum Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Forum delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsforum. Enter code DRF Sports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Let's take a look at the field for the Empire Classic on a day filled with New York bred stakes races at Belmont Park Saturday afternoon. It's race number 10. Again, head on over to video.drf.com for the expanded stakes preview. We go over all the horses from A to Z in post-position order. Mike, these races are always fun, fascinating. These are blue-collar types. They go out there, they throw it down each and every time. Is it wrong that I kind of want to look against some of the logical horses, whether it is a pat on the back or a control group, perhaps looking for a little bit of a more intriguing price?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that's sort of a theme throughout the New York Bred Showcase Day at Belmont. I think these horses are very well matched. They take turns beating each other. I don't think you're wrong at all to be reaching for a price in this race. That's certainly what I'm doing in this race. I'm going to go with calculated risker in here. This is a horse who I feel like they claimed this horse back in March. His first start off the claim for trainer Ray Handel I thought was a big improvement for this horse with a 90 buyer speed figure. He looked like a totally different horse for these new connections. And then he came back at Saratoga over this 9 furlong distance, and we're going to show a replay of his win up at Saratoga. Now, he got a good trip in this race. He sat right in behind what was a legitimate pace. He tracked it. He took over on the second turn, and you're going to see him here driving through the stretch, coming down the outside with all the momentum is the 3-year-old evaluator. I like the way Calculated Risker digs in and holds this horse off all the way down to the wire. Another improved performance for this horse he seems to me, Matt, like he's gotten really good. He's going to get a good trip in this race with plenty of pace. I don't see why he can't be competitive with these horses right now.
And you're going to be looking at a horse that should be a very, very square price in here. You know, like you say, Handel has done a great job with him. And again, if you get something similar to that effort from Saratoga, you're looking at a very interesting sort of longer price in a race that really I think you kind of owe it to yourself as a handicapper to explore some alternatives outside of the main contenders. I'm looking at one of the 3-year-olds in here. That's the number 8 Seafoam for Christophe Clement. Most recently, maybe a little bit of a pace casualty in the Oklahoma Derby, stepping up in class considerably against straight 3-year-olds. The pace, he felt the effects of it, I think. He was also a little bit wide throughout. But ever since they've stretched him out, it feels like he's taken his game to the next level. We're going to go to his most recent victory in the Albany 2 starts back up at Saratoga. You're also going to see Evaluator, who we saw in that prior video as well. He's going to come down the outside. I understand Seafoam had all the best of it this day. And guess what? He had all the best of it 3 starts back in the New York Derby up at Finger Lakes. There's a part of me, though, that just wonders if this is an improving 3-year-old, and we've seen it time and time again. This time of year, these 3-year-olds can take a big step forward. He's paired up buyer tops of 84 in each of his past 2 starts. And I do wonder, maybe he doesn't absolutely have to have the lead. Maybe he can sit just off what projects to be a relatively swift pace, and he should be a decent price in here. Joel Rosario picks the mount up again. Last time he rode him was in that Albany, winning up at Saratoga. Mike and I are going to look for a couple of alternatives in the Empire Classic on Saturday afternoon. I will go with the number 8, Seafoam. Another one of those interesting stakes on that card at Belmont Park Saturday afternoon is the Mohawk, much earlier in the card, race number 3. We're going to take a look at that one right now. More stakes action from Belmont Park on Saturday. Again, the New York Breds, race number 3. Let's take a look at the field for the Mohawk. This is going to be run on the turf. This is for a division that, Mike, it feels like these guys just, one turn after another. It seems like they each show up each and every time, but they take turns beating one another again, though. You can take a look at video.drf.com for the entire expanded stakes preview. The one thing we know for certain about this field, or at least it feels like we know for certain, is that Black Tide, the winner of the Cole most recently, where a number of these horses exit, it feels like he has one way to go. He upset the apple cart at 28-1 last time. He's going to be on the lead this time around again. Do you think there's a scenario where he pulls it off again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a chance that he could just wire this field one more time. It was nice to see him finally get back to his, what was probably his best race in the actually Cole last time, right to the front. Never let them get into the race. He had won this race that we're talking about now, the Mohawk, last year in the same way, right to the top, never let him into the field. So he's a dangerous horse on his best day. We'll see if we get his best race on Saturday. But, as you say, these horses take turns beating each other. Trips are going to be paramount in here. We'll see who gets a good one this time. We're going to show up the replay right now of the Ashley T. Cole, because you got 6 of the horses from the Cole coming back in this spot. And of course, that is Black Tide right out there on the front, and they can't catch him. I want to focus on the big gray there, though, Tapitation. That's the horse I'm going to try and beat him with on Saturday. Tapitation, I feel like in this race here, I think this race is a little better than it may look on paper. He's ultimately going to get tired here and finish 7th, but he was 3 wide throughout the running of this race, chasing Black Tide on the lead. And I think he paid the price for that trip, Matt. I think he actually ran an okay race in there. I also feel like He ran a pretty good race 2 starts back when he was behind a couple of these horses up at Saratoga when he got into a little bit of traffic. And I also feel like he ran well 3 starts back on July 5th at Belmont Park when he was second to the graded stakes winning Black Type. I think this horse is actually in good form. I think he's a little bit dirtied up off that last trip, and I'm hoping that maybe he gets a little bit of an easier, softer trip this time without chasing Black Tide on the lead, and maybe he can pull off a little bit of an upset in this race.
And it feels like coming off of that long layoff a number of months back, it feels like he's finally getting back into his best form prior to being sent away for almost a year, if not more. Tapitation, he's an interesting sort of longer price in a race like this. I'm also going to take a flyer in here with the number 3 Hobo. Probably the best name in the entire field, but that's neither here nor there. Hobo, the logic for me with Hobo is I saw that just group of horses, that 7 or 8 horse scrum there trying to get the minor awards in behind Black Tide and that Ashley Cole. And I understand any of them can certainly win that race. I'm just not totally convinced that I really want to settle on any one of them when I don't think that there's anything giant to separate any of them. On the flip side, maybe a fresh face is the way to go. We're going to take a look at the most recent run for Hobo. And guess what? Hobo had been gone for a long time himself, over a calendar year. He's in those orange sleeves right now, the gray horse. And it may not look like he's moving all that quick, but I like the way that he extends down the lane. Keep in mind his first start in about 13 months, came over yielding going. He did get a pretty good trip, all things considered, a little bit bottled up coming off the far turn, but I like the way that he moved here. He earned a career best buyer of 85 this day. And keep in mind, before he went away, the Connections, David Donk and company, they threw blinkers on him for each of his past 4 starts, or his 4 most recent starts. They are 3 victories and a neck defeat running second. I just wanted a fresh face in here. He's not fast enough right now, but I'm hopeful maybe there's a forward move in him. Second start off the long layoff. I'll take a shot with Hobo in the Mohawk at Belmont Park on Saturday afternoon. Jonathan Kinchin with JK's play of the day. He's going down to Keeneland Racecourse, looking at a daily double, kicking things off with the Raven Run. And David Aragona from Timeform US, he's going to use Timeform US in the past performances to analyze the Maid of the Mist. Let's throw it to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Going to head back to Keeneland, America, Lexington. A horse that was entered actually last Sunday. I played in a contest there and I was very interested in. Scratched because they were off the turf. Is back in here. I'm going to play doubles into that horse. Starting in race 9, the grade 2 Lexus Raven Run. There's 2 horses I'm going to use in here. The one, Amy's Challenge, was a horse that was on the Kentucky Oaks Trail early in the year. Was always thought to be one that was going to be able to cut back. One of the reasons I wasn't a big fan of her during those times she was trying to cut back is they spent a long time trying to get her to stretch out. I think that can be confusing for young horses, trying to get them to rate and to not use their speed early. And then when you ask them to use their speed, sometimes it backfires. I think the horse is now going to be kind of back in a situation where she can get back sprinting. She's drawn down on the inside. They should ask her away from there going 7, and I think she could be tough in this spot. I'm also going to use a horse for Chad Brown. I believe the horse is the 5 horse, Alter Moon. It's a private purchase. They ran Alter Moon last time. Wasn't in the best spot that you wanted to be in that last race. I think she'll improve here for Chad Brown and for Peter Brandt. Also, Jose Ortiz is going to ride there. So those are the 2 that I'm going to use in the Raven Run, and I'm going to lead those horses into to a horse by the name of Cosmic Code. For Brad Cox and Juddmont Farm. Brad Cox is always obviously an up-and-coming guy, and I don't even know if I want to call him up-and-coming anymore after winning the Oaks and various other grade 1s, including yours truly, long on value. So, but one of the things about Brad is he still kind of lacks that really big breakout, big-time client to the Godolphins, the Juddmonts. And I think that when he has horses for Juddmont, he wants to win with them, whether it's first out, third out, or in a stake race. I think he'll have this horse ready to rock and roll. Horse has been on the also eligible list twice, once in September, and like I said, once last week. So obviously the foundation is there. Has been working with some dirt horses in the past on the dirt, but now finally gets on the surface that this horse clearly wants. That's why they scratched when they were off the turf last weekend. Drawn outside, the post position, the first-time starter, all of those things are reasons why I think you'll actually get a pretty fair price here. There doesn't appear to be any world beaters in here, and I think playing the double using the 2 horses I mentioned in the Raven Run into the 12-horse Cosmic Code could present a ton of value. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, everyone. This is David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. Saturday at Belmont Park is Empire Showcase Day. There are a ton of really interesting stakes races for New York breds. Two of the toughest races on the card are those for the 2-year-olds. There's the Maid of the Mist for the 2-year-old fillies and the Sleepy Hollow for the colts. We're going to take a look at the filly version, the Maid of the Mist. A lot of these 2-year-old fillies are stretching out to the 1-mile distance for the first time. It's a large field of 12 horses, a lot of horses just coming off maiden wins, even one first-time starter. Really competitive group. The favorite on the morning line is the number 7 horse Cartwheel and Lou at a pretty high price of 7-2, which kind of speaks to how competitive this race is overall. A lot of horses stretching out in distance for the first time. That often translates to a race that's going to feature a fast pace, and we'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, and that is indeed the case. Now, the favorite, number 7, Cartwheel and Lou, she's won wire to wire in her first 2 career starts, but she's actually predicted to be slightly off the pace based on the pace projector, as the number 9 horse Elegant Zip and the number 11 Keep True are placed ahead of her. Both of those horses are also stretching out in distance, so we'll see which one is ridden to take the lead going their first time at a route of ground. Taking a look at the PPs of the favorite, number 7, Cartwheel and Lou, she's 2 for 2. She's really been not headed in either of her career starts. She won a pretty weak maiden race at Finger Lakes in her first outing, but she earned a respectable 90 Timeform US speed figure. She came back last time in the Joseph A. Gym against a lot of common rivals that are also back in today's race, and she really had all the best of it on the front end. There was a lot of pace in that race, so it seemed, but it just never developed on the racetrack. She broke from the outside post position. All the other riders decided to take back and rate their horses, and John Velasquez, who was on her, was just allowed to scoot over to the rail and set the pace through pretty slow fractions. You see those blue color-coded Timeform US pace figures, which indicate a slow pace. The final speed figure came back relatively slow of an 83, because often races that feature slow paces don't create very fast final times, and she really got no extra credit for setting a fast pace in that race. She beat Elegant Zip that day, who ended up finishing 3rd. I kind of think that Elegant Zip has a chance to turn the tables on her at this race, because Elegant Zip, well, she was also on the rail that day, and it's worth noting you did want to be on the rail on September 19th. We've seen a rail bias in effect on many days of this Belmont meet, and September 19th was one of those days. Elegant Zip, she's run faster races at least against tougher fields in the past. She earned a 94 speed figure in her debut against the really talented Collegeville girl. She came back and won in a game effort in her next outing with a 92 speed figure. And then last time out, she was just kind of in behind horses on the inside. Once she actually swung out in the stretch, she briefly threatened the winner, but couldn't really get there at the end. The stretch out is going to be a question mark for her, because she's a daughter of Runaway and Hyde out of a Speightstown mare, not really a route pedigree, but I think she just has more natural talent than Cartwheel and Lou, so I prefer her. But I want to look outside the box, because there are plenty of other horses to consider in this race that are going to be much better prices. One of those is the number 11 horse Kept True. Now, you notice in the PPs of her last race on Timeform US, the type is green in the brown box. That indicates a race that came off the turf. Now, often in off-the-turf races, those races come up a bit weaker than scheduled dirt races, but I think this is a case where it's a bit of an exception to that rule, because 12 horses stayed in the race. There are plenty of MTO entrants, and it appeared that there was some talent in the race among a bunch of the first-time starters. Kept True was one of those. If you watch that race, she was utterly dominant throughout. She just looked like a winner every step of the way. Rajiv Mirage had a handful of horse. Once she bowled her way out in the stretch, she really finished strongly. The stretch out for her is going to be a question as well, because she's a daughter of sprinter. Yes, it's true. The dam herself was a sprinter, but this horse seemed like she really was well developed in her debut, like she had a good mind to her. So I think the stretch out might just work for her, given how she seems to be ahead of her rivals in that respect. So I like Kept True in this spot, but again, she's not a huge price, and I think there are some long shots that are worth considering. The one that I landed on is the number 5 horse Time Warp. She looks inferior to her rivals at first glance, but I like the way that this filly is improving coming into this race. She didn't show much in her debut after taking some money in that race, but she came back and beat an off-the-turf field next time in a relatively slow race, but I like the way that she did it, and she handled the 7 furlongs. It looked like she didn't run that well in her next time out when she made her stakes debut, but notice the red race rating box, and that indicates a speed favoring track. In addition to that, August 24th was the day where you wanted to be on the rail, and she was 4 wide, 3 wide, all around the far turn, and just was way against the track. So her 76 Timeform US speed figure that she earned is actually, it would be a lot higher if she had gotten a more favorable trip. Last time out, they took her to Keeneland, stretched her out for the first time around 2 turns, and I thought she hung in pretty gamely until the end. She kind of got bumped around at the 8th pole before fading in that race, but she earned an improved speed figure of an 86, and She faced some horses, open company, that were okay. You notice in the upper right-hand corner in Ken McPeak's trainer rating summary, he gets a 94 time for his trainer rating with horses coming back off 8 to 14-day rest. If you look in DRF Formulator and really narrow that down to horses running in non-graded stakes races, he's won 6 of 12. With horses coming off 8 to 15-day rest and non-graded stakes races on the dirt, does especially well with 2-year-olds. So I think that he's just striking while the iron is hot with a filly that's moving in the right direction. I don't think she's going to have a problem with the distance, and she's going to be a price. So I'm taking a shot with Long Shot Time Warp in the Maid of the Mist. I'll use her with the 2 favorites, as well as Kept True, the number 11. So let's look at the Maid of the Mist on Belmont. It's on Saturday at Belmont. It's a really strong card. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for the best bet segment. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst for the Racing Form. Obviously, NYRA. Let's take a look at the opener.
Yeah, first race on New York Bred Showcase Day, so it is a New York Bred race. This one's for 2-year-old maidens. They're going to sprint on the turf. And I'm going to bet Bobby Man in this race. He's number 1 in this field. He made his career debut last month at Belmont Park in a similar race, 6 furlongs on the turf. He caught yielding ground. Let's go to the start of the race first. This is his first career start. We're not going to show you the head-on, but he just gets absolutely crushed between horses at the start. And you can see Irad Ortiz just has to take a hold of him, steadies him back to last. He gets totally outrun. We'll pick it up in the stretch again, and he is still last as they turn into the field. He's got a lot of work to do from here. But this horse actually puts in a pretty nice run through the lane here. I like the way that he finishes up trying to get himself involved in here. He really has no chance to do it, but he's not going to stop trying to catch, and he'll make up ground all the way down to the finish. He will just miss getting up for 3rd in here. He's still a little bit green, too. You can see him through the lane here. Had a little trouble changing his leads. He wasn't completely focused. I think this horse ran really well first time out. If he takes a step forward off of that and he can actually get out of the gate this time from the rail draw, he might be very tough to beat in his second start.
Definitely a promising debut, one that you can certainly build off of. An interesting player there in the opener at Belmont on Saturday. I'm going to go up to Woodbine for their 9th race. It's a stakes race on Saturday afternoon. It's the Carotene. It's a restricted race for Ontario-bred fillies. They're 3-year-olds. I'm going down to the inside with the number 1 Desert Isle. I understand anyone that looks at Dixie Moon says she's way the horse to beat. If not her, the alternative is Avi's Mineshaft. I liked what we saw from Desert Isle, most recently. We're going to take a look at her maiden score. This was up at Woodbine. She's going to break from the gate. Everything looks fine there. But the real important thing to note about this effort, first time with blinkers on. And normally I despise any Bernardini that's on grass. But it seems like this is really what she's wanted. Her 2 best races to date have both come on the turf. And you see her right now in that white hat. Jose Ortiz cuts her loose. She absolutely blows the doors off this field. 80 Beyer speed figure, first time with the blinkers on. 106 raw time form US rating. There's a part of me that thinks perhaps she sits just off Dixie Moon. Maybe at the end of the day, that's all you need. I thought this was visually an impressive enough effort, and she might get a little bit lost in the shuffle. It's not a giant field. There's only 6, but maybe she'll be the 3rd choice in here and offer some fair value. I'll go with the number 1, Desert Isle, in the 9th at Woodbine on Saturday for my best bet. I'd like to thank you for watching this week's edition of Out of the Gate. For all the latest offerings from DRF TV, you can follow us on Twitter at DRF Video. For Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, all of our contributors, thanks for watching. Best of luck this weekend when your horses break out of the gate.